As we wind up on a massive year, I'm continuing the countdown of 2021, looking back at the big news events affecting Indigenous Australians. Last week, I talked through the first third of the year, highlighting the 30-year anniversary of the Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody and Invasion Day protests. If you haven't watched the episode yet, be sure to head back to my homepage after this video and check it out. This week, I'll continue through 2021 with major headlines to revisit. So stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander viewers are warned that this video contains images, names and voices of deceased people. In May 2021, the first season of RuPaul's Drag Race Down Under premiered on Stan. We saw our first ever Aboriginal drag queen take part in the global franchise with the casting of Sydney Queen Jojo Zaho. Sadly, Jojo didn't last very long and was booted in the first round. Keeping with entertainment news, we also had another history-making TV announcement. WA's very own Brooke Blurton was announced as this year's Bachelorette. Blurton became the first ever Indigenous and first ever openly bisexual Bachelorette in the Australian franchise. In other news, the federal court ordered Telstra to pay $50 million in penalties for engaging in unconscionable conduct when it sold mobile contracts to more than 100 Indigenous consumers, which they did not understand and could not afford. We also had a few deaths in custody cases finally get their turn in the coroner's court. Here in WA, we had the 2017 tasering of Mr. Rioli. And in South Australia, the Wayne Fella Morrison inquest was heard in their coroner's court. May also saw the Koori Mail celebrate 30 years since they began publishing. On a sour note, as we approach the 1-year anniversary of the Juukan Gorge disaster, it was revealed that Kimberley Granite, a company who, despite having their Section 18 application rejected, would not face prosecution following a government investigation. They were accused of destroying Aboriginal dreaming sites. Let's move to June. Not only is it my birthday month, but there were some memorable moments to celebrate. At the beginning of June, Dreamtime at Optus was held due to another Victorian lockdown. For the first time ever, WA hosted the annual AFL match to a sold-out crowd. The event included the annual long walk ahead of the match.
Just a great start. I think hopefully something in the future that can happen here ongoing.
It was a huge success and the AFL has even said they're considering bringing the special game back to WA. Also making news in June was the official name change of Coon Cheese to Chia Cheese. Following the announcement in January, we finally saw the new and improved Chia Cheese available at supermarkets. Before Sydney went into lockdown in July, the city held Australian Fashion Week where First Nation designers made history. 7 black designers took over the runway for the First Nations Fashion and Design Show. And although it wasn't an Indigenous-related issue, the sentencing of the US officers over the death of George Floyd was a historic moment in time and in the Black Lives Matter movement.
It is not justice. Justice if George Floyd would be alive.
July is a massive month for mob. It's NAIDOC month and boy did this year deliver. Aboriginal woman Ash Barty became the second Indigenous tennis star to make it to the Wimbledon finals behind her mentor Yvonne Goolagong Cawley. Barty went on to win Wimbledon and dedicated it to her idol.
I hope I made Yvonne proud.
But there was no rest for the Barty party, who flew from the UK to Japan to compete at the historic 2020 Tokyo Olympics. After a year's delay due to COVID, the Tokyo Games were finally underway. This year's Australian squad of 472 athletes had already broken records before they left the country. Not only did we have the highest number of females in the squad, but it also included the largest number of Indigenous athletes in the Games history, with 16 First Nations people competing in 11 sports. Paddy Mills made history when he was announced as one of the flag bearers, making him the first ever Indigenous flag bearer in Australian history. To cap off NAIDOC Week, Beyoncé, of all people, made many people's dreams come true. The singer shared photos of herself in front of an Aboriginal artwork. It turned out Jay-Z bought the painting in New York 2 years ago. Yongle model Magnolia Mamara and her daughter got the internet buzzing when they graced the cover and pages of Vogue Australia. After announcing the new Close the Gap targets in the previous year, the official funding for the new national agreement was announced. A historic commitment of more than $1 billion in new measures of support to help achieve Closing the Gap outcomes. The new funding also covered compensation for some stolen generation survivors in specific states. This opened up a conversation about compensation in other parts of the country, such as here in WA. August also sparked the return of AFL star Willie Rioli, who hails from the Tiwi Islands in the Northern Territory. After completing his 2-year ban for twice tampering with a urine sample, Rioli was on track to return to play with the West Coast Eagles during round 23. Unfortunately, a hamstring injury hampered his comeback, but we finally got to hear from Rioli for the first time since his ban.
How much will it mean to you to actually run out and play the game again?
It'll mean a lot, not only to me, but to my family who've been there through this hard times with me. It'll mean the world.
At the end of August, family favourites The Wiggles announced they'd expand their cast with 4 new members, including the first ever Aboriginal Wiggle. Aboriginal woman Evie Ferris said she was thrilled to be the first First Nations member and the latest Blue Wiggle. As part of their new YouTube series, Fruit Salad TV, The Wiggles increased their cast with the aim to inspire a more culturally and gender diverse audience. Although we had a great July, in August, tragedy struck when we recorded our first ever Indigenous COVID-related death. The New South Wales outbreak made its way from Greater Sydney into the regions, where the outcomes were disastrous. A lot of stories, and we still have one more episode to go. Be sure to tune in to next week's episode where I take you through the last 4 months of 2021, including the retirement of some of our deadly AFL players, the murder trial of a Geraldton mother, and a historic moment in political history. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.